Bush, and I'm the Area Director for the White Plains Community Action Program, a program that's under the WestCOP, or Westchester Community Opportunity Programs umbrella. And today, you're here with me, White Plains Cap Talk. I'm very, very pleased with our guest today, and I'm sure that you will. You're going to learn tons of stuff about WestCOP because I have the Executive Director of WestCOP here with us, and his name is Winston Ross. Winston, how are you?
Good to be here.
Thank you for coming. It's been a minute since we tried to get you here, so thank you for coming. Let me start out by asking, so who is Winston Ross?
Well, I'm basically a community organizer, community activist, but a social worker and a social work administrator. And over the years, I finally found what I would say was my ideal job, working at WestCOP.
Really?
Which is a community action agency as a whole, but it was also founded in the 60s to eradicate poverty in Westchester County. And we emanated from really not the cities within Westchester, but the local villages and towns where the pockets of poverty existed amidst affluence. So WestCOP actually provided a real opportunity for us to put into play neighbors helping neighbors, people helping people, and that's what we do.
And I'm gonna dive into that a little more in a minute, but I happen to know a little bit because we've known each other for quite a number of years. With me sitting on the WestCOP board actually for a number of years. But I think, and if you can share just with the audience a little bit, because I think you grew up in Yonkers. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, I'm an immigrant. I was brought by my family to Yonkers. My four brothers. And four of us were raised by an aunt and uncle. My father died when I was 2 years old. My youngest brother was 6 months old when my father died, and my oldest brother was 5 years. So we all within about 5 years. And an aunt and uncle eventually garnered enough assets and things you needed in those days to provide enough support to show that we would not be a ward to the city or whatever. But anyway, we came to the land of opportunity where the streets were supposed to be paved with gold, and that was the city of Yonkers.
Okay.
So having just watched the Democratic keynote speaker last night talking about his experience as an immigrant, I went through a similar kind of experience and at a young age, and and I realized that my experience is not going to be the same as anyone else. I have cousins who grew up in the Bronx who also were not immigrants, but were our age, and they wound up in jail and other kinds of things. So you're a product of your environment. So actually, where I grew up in Yonkers, it was not a bad experience. It was a very protected environment, if I look back at it. And I had a family who valued education, who valued energy and activity, and actually I always had a part-time job from the time I was lied about my age at 11 to get a newspaper out, and then I worked as a handyman in a dress shop in Getty Square in Yonkers, and then from there I was probably the first African American hired at Warnermakers on Christmas time to they wanted to show an example that they did hire blacks.
And Wanamaker's was a department store.
It was a department store at the Cross County Center, and it was an experience, but it was only a short time one because it was Christmas time.
Right.
And after that, I've had numerous other jobs, both in the city and elsewhere.
And if I may ask, where did you immigrate from?
The island of St. Kitts in the British West Indies.
Oh, really?
St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla is
Never
what
heard
it
of
was
that.
known in those days. It's in the Leeward Islands.
Mm,
Antigua is the other Leeward
Ah,
island.
okay,
So
Antigua,
those
I
are
know.
the four Leeward Islands that were British. And
Oh, okay.
it was a British colony at the time. Now
Uh-huh.
it's an independent country. St. Kitts Nevis is the country.
Do you ever go back?
I've been back when my mother died. I went back, and I was back 2 or 3 times while she was alive. But I haven't been back in about 10 years.
Really?
Right.
Yeah. You should
Yeah.
go back.
I will. I will at some point.
Yeah. So let me ask this. WestCOP, I believe, is the largest not-for-profit organization, human services organization in here in Westchester. Would that be a true statement?
It's among the largest. I'm not going to argue. It depends how you define it. At times, we are probably the largest. We employ over 600 people, 400 or so in our early childhood programs. We're the largest daycare provider in Westchester.
Really?
We provide Head Start outside of White Plains, but our early childhood centers, we have over 25 early childhood centers throughout Westchester and Putnam counties.
So just not in Westchester. You do have a presence in Putnam as well.
Putnam County as well. And
Specifically, I think in Brewster, right?
yes,
Yeah.
we have a Head Start program that actually we had been serving Putnam for a number of years, but the kids had to be bused to Westchester to get Head Start services. It wasn't until the ARA program, which is the work program that our president created to provide jobs and employment, really benefited us in serving the population, the needy population in Putnam County. So we were able to establish a Head Start program there out of those funds. And we've managed to continue it because the need is so great and the eligible kids are there.
Now, I think recently you've also acquired a site in across the river in Rockland County. Is that true?
Well, we were asked by New York State, because of the job we do in Westchester, to be an interim grantee for the community services program in Rockland, which we're now providing at this point. They're putting out an RFP and we'll apply for it, but there are Rockland agencies that are also competing with us.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. But obviously, being here 47 years this year, you're celebrating, and we'll get to, I know there's some events that are happening, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Certainly, with that kind of years in, would certainly say A, that you know what you're doing, and B, that you've got some longevity that says we know how to do this.
The agency has been here for 47 years. I've been executive director for 30 years, 30 of those 47 years, and I've been with the agency maybe 34 years, so I was with the agency about 4 years before I became executive director.
As a social worker?
No, not as a social worker, as coordinator of the energy programs for low-income people that we had I established a program that we had in Putnam at that point, as well as coordinated the program, which was a large CETA. Actually, at that point, we had a comprehensive employment and training program that we operated that employed about 40 young people and older people in the predecessor to the workforce and current workforce investment program, but it was called the Comprehensive Employment Program, or CETA.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that.
And we are now, hopefully, we have not had a new initiative in this employment area, and I'm looking forward to what can happen in the next 4 years. So we need to look at what could be done to help those most in need in seeking employment throughout our county or throughout in urban areas, because in New York City and places like that and the Bronx, there are a need for a new vision in terms of those students who go to high school who are not really a part of the success track, they wind up spending time without necessarily moving into productive activity, and instead they may wind up in the criminal justice system. I was fortunate myself. I'm a product of the community college system. When I graduated from high school in Yonkers, I unfortunately was not in an academic program, although I wished I was. But I was steered into a non-academic program. But because of the community college idea, I was able to, right now I have a master's from Columbia in social work. This would not have been possible if it wasn't for community college. So I'm one of the best supporters of Westchester Community College because it's the best deal for a student in terms of money.
And a lot of people have sort of this
misconception about
yeah.
Your first 2 years. I did my first 2 years in a community college, my second 2 years at NYU, and paid the big bucks the second 2 years. But I was fortunate to also get a scholarship to Columbia for my master's program through New York City. I was employed by the Department of Social Services in New York City, and they had a scholarship program then for those people who would work in child welfare, and I chose to go into child welfare and work on protective services and so on.
Which is a major thing even still today, right?
Right.
You know.
But the funds for training is not what it was when I went. So I was fortunate, and I always look back and say, some people benefited from one kind of federal assistance or another. Well, I was fortunate to benefit from a scholarship through Health and Human Services. And these don't exist anymore, not as enriched as it was.
Right.
And we need to encourage people to get into those areas where we need skilled employees. Teaching is an example, or social work is an example. Health and nursing and so on are all important areas that we need to invest some money into publicly.
And I think that many times people have this misconception that people who are at or below the poverty line, people that are just scraping or maybe not even getting by, are all minorities. But that certainly is not the case.
It's not the case, and I would always say that I considered myself, as Mrs. Obama said last night, I consider myself middle class. Growing up, I had all the attitudes of an aspiring immigrant coming to the United States and trying to make the best of it. And therefore, I was never on public assistance, but I happen to know that my aunt, who was a peace worker in the Ladies Garment Workers Union, I remember it because she was a shop steward, and every couple of weeks they would be laid off, and she would have to go and get an unemployment check. And for 2 days a week, and then 3 days they did peace work. And she was actually a shop steward, so she rose up in the ranks. But she was also a union person. So I was instilled early in encouraging me to move ahead and make yourself better.
So you mentioned something about energy program. I know that, of course, White Plains CAP is the only agency here in White Plains that does the Home Energy Assistance Program, also known as HEAP.
But we also do weatherization. We weatherize the homes of low-income people, and we've been doing that for over 30 years, both in Westchester and Putnam counties. And
how does that work?
It works both in multi-family dwellings, or or homeowners can apply if their income levels are low enough.
Okay.
It's for low income, but it also covers seniors who may only have one income, and they may be in a house that is
Drafty.
inefficient and need work,
Mm-hmm.
and they could apply, and they might be eligible. The other group that is eligible,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a handicapped person or a disabled person, they're automatically eligible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Multifamilies where tenants are eligible would be if the tenant is low income
Mm-hmm.
and the landlord is willing to make a contribution towards the work. We could also go in and do those units. So we
Nice.
now do a lot of multifamilies,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with the conversions of 236 units and
Mm-hmm.
some of those that
Mm-hmm.
had Section 8 apartments.
Mm-hmm.
All the Section 8 apartments would be eligible in a building like that.
Oh, okay.
In addition, the landlord could invest some of his own money to cover the rest, and we'd work out a landlord contribution towards what we do.
Nice. So, and
And
I
that's a
know.
WestCOP program. That's our energy conservation program, and the
Oh, okay.
office for that is located in Yonkers.
Ah.
So WestCOP has a Yonkers office for energy and energy conservation.
Mm-hmm. Is that separate from the employment and training office
Yes, it
in
is.
Yonkers?
It
Because
is.
I know that's
Yes.
what, on Ashburton.
Yeah, this one is over near Central Avenue and
Okay.
Palmer Road.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
where the weatherization program is located.
So you have early childhood development programs. You've got weatherization. You've got home energy assistance. What are some of the other things that WestCOP does?
Well, we do victims assistance services. So for one of our larger components, we provide rape crisis intervention training. We also do training for SANE nurses. That's sexual assault nurses who get forensic training, and they actually work. We partner with the Visitor Nurse Services of Westchester. So they work for the Visitor Nurses of Westchester, but we have trained nurses who would go to a emergency room if somebody's raped and made sure that the examination is done forensically properly.
Oh, okay.
So we also do crime prevention for seniors and general crime prevention and work and victims compensation. If you happen to get mugged at the end of the week when you had your paycheck in your pocket and you report it to the police, we could get you a grant for some of the money you might have been taken from you.
Really? I didn't know that one.
That's through our victims compensation program,
Oh, okay.
among other things we do.
Okay. Okay. Obviously, one of the other things that you do, which is what I'm part of, is community action programs, right?
And community action programs cover the whole gamut. It's really crisis intervention at its utmost. People facing eviction don't know where to turn. They could go to one of our multi-service sites and get help, be directed to the right resources. There's also we see that people apply for the things they're eligible for, like food stamps. Other kinds of nutrition programs. And in addition to that, we also provide emergency food assistance. In some of our sites, we do have food pantries, or we are closely affiliated with the food pantries that are in the community. So we recently, until recently, we provided substance abuse services, although we have transferred that program recently, but we continue to in our programs, like some of them we own the buildings we're in. Eastchester CAP has a summer program, and that is funded by the fund of Bronxville. Eastchester Bronxville Community Fund. The community has decided that they want to place priority in seeing that the kids that are low income in that area get services throughout the year. So in the summer they fund program there.
Mm-hmm.
We also, in other communities, we recently resumed the operation of the Tarrytown COs, Community Opportunity Center at Tarrytown,
Mm-hmm.
which had been one of the original founders of WestCOP, which came back into the fold. It had been independent for a number of years, but recently we now run it directly. So it's an ever-changing environment. Right now, the biggest issues we deal with is budget cuts on the federal level, the state level, and the county level.
And I was just going to ask.
So it's a constant need for advocacy in terms of making sure that priorities in each community set so that those least who can least afford to be without assistance get the assistance they need. And unfortunately, a lot of the programs that exist in our are means tested, which says that if you don't have the income guidelines and don't meet those guidelines, you may fall within the cracks. Sometimes we may be able to help people, particularly seniors often times are afraid to ask for help. And those seniors who happen to go to the senior citizen centers, they get all the help they need. It's the ones who stay locked up in their apartments, don't come out, afraid to come out, who you find sometimes need to be visited and encouraged to participate as well, because there are some services that they can get, but if you don't seek them, you won't ever know they exist.
And speaking of seniors, I believe you have a grandparents.
We do run a foster grandparents program where we give a stipend to foster grandparents who volunteer. They have to meet low-income guidelines, but they get a stipend which allows them to volunteer in our early childhood centers or schools, public schools. As long as they work with children who may have special needs, they could do individual one-on-one activities with those children on a volunteer basis and would be eligible for a stipend. And that stipend is not figured into their income guidelines.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you said that it's important that people do advocacy for WestCOP. How do they do that?
Well, it's not advocacy for WestCOP. It's advocacy for making sure that budget priorities are given, highlighted. For instance, recently we have been going through an effort to keep the guidelines at a reasonable level for the working poor. These are people not on public assistance, but those who have gone back to work, but now they are facing the dilemma that they may have to put their children in unsafe child care because they can't afford to keep them in properly supervised child care, be it in someone's home or in a center. So we have to continually advocate that these resources not be diverted to other things, but continue to provide the valuable asset of keeping people employed and being productive. Otherwise, we'll go back to where we were maybe 20 years ago.
Wow. So now in the next couple of minutes that we have left, yes, it's almost time. Tell us about some things that are up and coming, because I know that there's some things that you're doing.
WestCOP, or Westchester Community Opportunity Program, is celebrating its 47th anniversary this year. 47 years we have been in existence.
Nice.
And this year we are celebrating it again at the Green Tree Country Club on November 9th.
Where is that
It's
located?
in New Rochelle. We hope you will support us. If you want more information on the event, you could go to our website, www.westcop.org, or you could call us at 914-592-5600 and ask for information. We hope to have a gala that will be an outstanding one and better than last year.
And are you seeking, I'm sure, always sponsorships and that kind
We're
of stuff?
seeking sponsorships. We're seeking ads for the journal. We're going to have a raffle. We're seeking prizes for a silent auction. So any of those things that you would like to donate, you could get in touch with me, Winston Ross, again at the number 592-5600 extension 130.
You're brave. You're putting your whole extension out there and everything.
I don't mind people calling because it gives me a chance to interact with the community.
Good. Is there anything that, we, the listening public out there, should know about, any way that they might be able to help WestCOP? When I know we have our own little local things, and, in my office I do outreach in White Plains and stuff like that, but is there anything as sort of a parting conversation?
Well, our local community action programs is a very important part of the agency, in that oftentimes they find out the needs in their community and they bring the need to the other CAP directors. For example, this past June or May and June, one of our CAPs got into providing prom dresses, for example, and that was not something new, but something that hadn't been done in our community or in their community, and it mushroomed where they were able to share some of those with some of the other CAP agencies, the other communities. That's an example of some of the things. Some of the other kinds of things that come up is sometimes students from some schools like to volunteer and come into our programs and
do community service kind of stuff. Yeah.
And now that community service is required in some high schools, it gives an opportunity or site where they can come and do, where older kids can provide tutoring for younger kids and so on.
Okay. So again, Winston, Mr. Ross, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming. And this is Reginald Bush, White Plains CAP Talks. Thank you.